Chosen one, lock your attention on this message right now. That restless feeling pulling at you, the one that won't let you sit still, won't let you sleep through the night, won't let you look away from this screen. Do not silence it. That is not anxiety. That is a divine summons. The enemy is working overtime right now for one reason and one reason only. He knows that what God has placed in your hands is about to change everything, and he is desperate to keep you distracted for just a few more days. It all ends now. The stalling, the second guessing, the unexplained paralysis. But hear this clearly, because this is the part that matters most. It is not ending because circumstances changed. It is ending because God just issued you a direct command. Think back to that moment this week, when you sat down to finally do the work, the project, the application, the assignment, the thing you know you were built for, and something pulled you away. A notification, a wave of exhaustion, a voice that said tomorrow would be better. You thought that was just life getting in the way. It was not. That was interference. And the fact that you are still carrying that unfinished thing, still feeling the weight of it pressing on your chest, means the window has not closed. You are still in it. But the urgency has shifted. You did not stumble onto this message. The algorithm did not bring you here. God did. This is a divine appointment that was written into your timeline before you drew your first breath. You are not here by accident. You are here because heaven needed to reach you before the moment passed. Stay until the very last word of this message, because in the next few minutes, I'm going to hand you the exact spiritual decree that breaks the spirit of delay off your assignment. I'm going to show you the moment you unknowingly activated your own stalling, not through failure, but through a test you did not know you were taking. And at the end, I am going to give you the declaration that seals your obedience and releases the blessing that has been held in suspension, waiting for you to move. Do not scroll away. The version of you that finishes what God started is on the other side of this message. If you leave now, you leave before the command is fully delivered. I know what the last 72 hours have felt like. The atmosphere around you has not just been busy, it has been thick. Heavy in a way that is hard to explain to someone who has not felt it. Maybe you have been moving all week but producing nothing, running from task to task, and still falling asleep at night with the specific feeling that the most important thing went untouched. Or maybe you have been completely still, frozen actually, staring at what needs to be done, knowing it is yours to do, but unable to take the first step without understanding why it feels so enormous. Or perhaps you woke up at 3 in the morning this week with a jolt, heart pounding, that unfinished work sitting heavy on your chest even in the dark, and you told yourself you would handle it in the morning, and then morning came and the weight only doubled. You feel suspended between the call and the completion, like you were handed something sacred and then lost the courage to carry it across the finish line. And in that suspension, the enemy has been whispering a very specific lie. He has been telling you that the delay is your fault, that you had your window and you hesitated, and now the timing is off. He has been replaying that moment when you put it down, that moment when you told yourself you were not ready, that moment when you chose rest over obedience or distraction over discipline, and now he is using that moment as a weapon, telling you that because of it, God has moved on, that the assignment is now less anointed, that the opportunity is stale, that someone else has already done it better. But I need you to hear what the Word of God actually says about this moment. Ecclesiastes 9:10 says, "Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might." Listen to what that is saying. Not whatever your hand already finished. Not whatever your hand did perfectly. Whatever your hand finds to do, meaning the thing still in front of you, the thing still waiting, the thing you have not completed yet. Do it with all your might. The command is present tense. God is not speaking to a past version of you who missed the moment. He is speaking to you right now, in this moment, about the work that is still alive and still assigned to your hands. The delay did not disqualify you. The delay was the preparation. The heaviness you feel around that unfinished work is not the weight of failure. It is the weight of divine urgency. It is heaven pressing down on your chest, not to punish you, but to mobilize you. God does not command dead assignments. He does not send summons to abandoned causes. The very fact that it still burns in you, the fact that you cannot shake it, cannot talk yourself out of it, cannot make peace with leaving it undone, that is not guilt. That is God. You thought the procrastination meant you were not ready. Let me reframe your reality right now. The waiting was not weakness. It was God holding the moment open long enough for you to receive the instruction. And this message is the instruction. The command has been issued. The work is still yours, and the time is now. Hit the like button if you feel this message found you at exactly the right moment. Drop a comment below. What is the one thing you know God has called you to finish? And what has been the loudest voice telling you to wait? Now let me tell you what actually happened in that moment when you put it down. Because there is a spiritual dynamic at work here that most people never get to see. And if you leave this message without understanding it, you will be vulnerable to the same interference the next time you try to move. So, stay with me, because this is where it gets precise. When God places an assignment in your hands, He does not just give you a task, He gives you a test. And the test is never about your talent. It is never about your ability to execute. The test is always about one thing. Will you move when heaven says move, even when the conditions are not comfortable, even when the timing feels inconvenient, even when no one is watching and no one is applauding, and everything inside you is screaming that you are not ready yet? This divine assignment is not merely a blueprint for action. It is a spiritual crucible, a refining fire designed not to burn you, but to burn away everything that is not authentically you. The world often measures success by visible results, by the applause of crowds, or by the perfect alignment of circumstances. But heaven operates on a different metric. This test, beloved one, is not a performance review of your skills, for God, who wove you in your mother's womb, knows every thread of your talent, every facet of your capability. He doesn't test your capacity. He tests your commitment to His timing, your willingness to step into the unknown purely on the strength of His word. It's about whether you will launch into the deep when the waters look turbulent, whether you will sow your seed in the desolate field, whether you will speak the truth when your voice trembles and the world prefers silence. It is about those moments when the internal landscape of your soul is a tempest, screaming that you are inadequate, ill-equipped, or utterly unprepared, yet the gentle, persistent whisper of the Spirit urges you forward. Will you trust the whisper more than the roar of your own perceived limitations, or the silent judgment of an unseen audience? This is the test of the heart, a testament to the unshakable faith that activates divine intervention. It's the moment where your faith moves from theory to tangible action, a demonstration that the voice of God carries more weight than the collective doubt of every earthly voice, including your own inner critic. This is the divine summons that bypasses logical analysis and calls directly to the spirit of obedience within you, demanding a response that transcends human comfort and convenience. And here is what makes this test so difficult. It does not feel like a test. It feels like wisdom. It feels responsible to wait. It feels spiritually mature to say, I need more time, more preparation, more confirmation. The enemy is far too intelligent to come at you with an obvious distraction. He does not tempt the chosen with laziness. He tempts you with reasonableness. He makes the delay sound like discernment. He makes the pause sound like patience. He dresses up fear in the language of faith and hands it to you like a gift, and you receive it because it sounds exactly like something God would say. The insidious nature of this particular trial lies in its masterful disguise. It arrives not as a glaring red flag of temptation, but as a subtle, almost holy-sounding whisper, making delay appear to be the epitome of prudence. It doesn't present itself as blatant disobedience, but as elevated caution, cloaked in the robes of spiritual maturity. The adversary, having millennia of experience in spiritual warfare, understands the hearts of the chosen. He knows that overt temptations, laziness, overt sin, obvious distractions, are easily recognized and resisted by those whose spirits yearn for alignment with heaven. Instead, he employs a far more sophisticated strategy, a spiritual Trojan horse. He tempts you not with indolence, but with what appears to be profound discernment, not with recklessness, but with what masquerades as godly wisdom. He injects the venom of inaction into your spirit, but labels it as waiting on the Lord, making a deferral feel like a sacred act of patience. He wraps your deepest fears in the gilded paper of spiritual language, presenting it as a prudent request for more time, more preparation, more confirmation, arguments that sound entirely reasonable, entirely responsible, and disturbingly like something a truly devout soul would utter. This is the enemy's most cunning tactic, to use the very lexicon of faith to immobilize faith itself. He makes the chains of stagnation sparkle like jewels of spiritual insight, leading you to believe that your reluctance is a testament to your depth, rather than a surrender to fear. He whispers, "Surely God would want you to be absolutely certain, perfectly equipped, flawlessly prepared," thereby twisting genuine spiritual prudence into a paralyzing perfectionism that prevents any forward movement. This false wisdom becomes a sophisticated prison, built not with visible bars, but with invisible threads of what if and not yet, effectively hijacking your divine momentum under the guise of spiritual integrity. Think of Moses at the burning bush. Here is a man who spent 40 years in the wilderness being prepared. 40 years of silence, obscurity, and what must have felt like irrelevance. And when God finally speaks, when the divine summons arrives wrapped in fire that does not consume, what does Moses do? He argues. He says, "Who am I that I should go?" He says, "What if they do not believe me?" He says, "I am not eloquent. I am slow of speech. I am slow of tongue." Moses is not being dishonest. He genuinely believes those things about himself. But God's response is not a pep talk. God does not say, "You're right, let me find someone more qualified." God says, "Who made your mouth? Was it not I? Now go." That is the sound of a divine command that does not negotiate with your self-assessment. Consider the ancient narrative of Moses, a man forged not in palaces of power, but in the desolate crucible of the wilderness. For 40 grueling years he traversed barren lands, tending sheep, lost in the vast expanse of obscurity. 40 years passed, a lifetime of silent anonymity, where his regal past as a prince of Egypt faded into the sands of memory, replaced by the humble existence of a shepherd. This long, arduous season must have felt like an eternity of irrelevance, a prolonged stripping away of any earthly identity or ambition. And then, from the heart of a burning bush, ablaze with fire that defied consumption, the voice of the Almighty shatters the 40-year silence. The divine summons, potent and undeniable, descends upon him. What is Moses' immediate response? Does he leap into action, invigorated by the power of the Most High? No, he argues. He quibbles with the divine directive, presenting a litany of perceived inadequacies. "Who am I," he questions, "that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" He then erects a shield of self-doubt. What if they do not believe me or listen to me? What if they say, "The Lord has not appeared to you"? Finally, he laments his lack of oratorical prowess. "O my Lord, I am not eloquent, either in the past or since you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech and of tongue." Moses was not attempting to deceive God. His self-assessment was painfully real to him, etched into his soul by years of isolated introspection. But the Creator of the universe did not offer a comforting platitude or a motivational speech. He did not say, "You're absolutely right, Moses. Your perceived limitations are too great. Let me search for someone more polished, more confident, more articulate." No, the divine reply cut through every excuse, every self-imposed barrier with unyielding authority. "Who made man's mouth? Who makes him mute or deaf, seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now therefore go, and I will be with your mouth and teach you what you shall speak." This is the thunder of a divine command, a declaration of sovereign power that utterly refuses to engage in negotiations with your human self-assessment, your perceived deficiencies, or the stories you've accumulated about yourself. It is the voice that reminds you that the very capacities you doubt were designed by the one who now calls you to use them. And here is what I need you to understand about Moses in that moment. His hesitation was not rooted in rebellion. It was rooted in something far more dangerous. It was rooted in a story he had been telling himself for 40 years. A story that said he was the wrong person, in the wrong place, at the wrong time. And the enemy had been reinforcing that story for 4 decades. So when the burning bush appeared, the interference did not look like opposition. It looked like humility. It looked like Moses just being honest about his limitations. But God saw through it immediately, because God never confuses genuine humility with agreement with the enemy's narrative about who you are. This is a critical insight, pivotal to understanding your own journey. Moses' initial reluctance, his earnest protestations, were not born of a defiant spirit or an unwillingness to serve. His heart, deep down, desired to align with God. Rather, his hesitation was anchored in something far more insidious, a spiritual malignancy that had taken root over 4 decades in the desert soil of his soul. It was a deeply ingrained narrative, a self-woven tapestry of inadequacy that declared him to be the wrong person for such a monumental task, existing in the wrong place for divine elevation, at precisely the wrong time for such a grand interruption. And for those 40 years, the enemy, ever the subtle architect of doubt, had been meticulously reinforcing every thread of that damaging story. He had whispered, "You're a forgotten fugitive, a murderer with blood on his hands, a failed leader, a man of stammering speech." These were not direct attacks, but insidious affirmations of Moses' own worst fears and self-perceptions. So, when the fiery manifestation of God's presence pierced the desert air, the spiritual interference that Moses encountered did not manifest as overt opposition or a demonic blockade. It appeared as a comforting, familiar cloak of humility. It felt like simple, brutal honesty about his limitations, a transparent admission of his perceived weaknesses. It felt spiritually mature to articulate his lack of eloquence, his historical failings, his unsuitability. Yet God, whose gaze penetrates the deepest recesses of the human heart, saw immediately past the veneer of self-effacement. He understood that genuine humility is a posture of submission to divine will, not an agreement with the enemy's disempowering narrative about who you are, what you're capable of, or what your destiny holds. God never mistakes a surrender to personal insecurity for true meekness. He discerns the subtle difference between acknowledging one's creatureliness before the Creator and allowing the voice of the accuser to define one's potential. And that is where you are right now. You have been agreeing with a story. Not a story someone else told you about your potential, but a story you have been telling yourself about your timing, your readiness, your worthiness to carry the thing God already placed in your hands. And that agreement has been the lock on the door that should have opened months ago. And this ancient struggle echoes in your present reality, reverberating in the very chambers of your spirit today. You, much like Moses, have unknowingly entered into an agreement with a story. This isn't necessarily a narrative imposed upon you by external voices, though those can certainly contribute. This is a far more insidious tale, one intricately woven by your own thoughts, articulated in the silent monologue of your mind. It's a story about your timing. I'm not in the right season, the stars aren't aligned yet. It's a story about your readiness. I need more courses, more certifications, more self-improvement before I can truly begin. It's a profound questioning of your worthiness. Who am I to steward such a significant purpose, to carry this divine weight? You've allowed past failures, perceived flaws, and a distorted reflection of your capabilities to construct a fortress of self-doubt. This internal narrative has become the very prison you inhabit, a self-imposed limitation that holds you captive. This unspoken, often unconscious agreement with these self-limiting beliefs has functioned as a formidable lock, fastening shut the door to the very opportunities, the very breakthroughs, the very divine mandates that should have been accessible to you not weeks, but months, even years ago. You possess the key, your identity in Christ, your divine calling, but the belief in the story has kept your hand from turning it. It's a spiritual paralysis, a stagnation born not of external force, but of internal consent. This agreement has transformed your destiny into a deferred dream, your purpose into a perpetual promise, always just out of reach because you've subconsciously consented to the narrative of not yet. But here's where it goes deeper. Because breaking agreement with the story is only the first movement. And what's coming in just a moment, the thing beneath even that, is the layer that most people never reach. The layer that, once you see it, explains everything. Before we get there, let me give you something to hold on to as we move forward. The test you have been in is not a test of your discipline, it is a test of your identity. God is not trying to see if you can execute a task. He already knows what you are capable of. He designed your capability. He is testing whether you know it too. Because an assignment carried by someone who does not believe they were built for it will always stall. Not because the work is too hard, but because the carrier keeps laying it down every time the weight of it reminds them that it is real. But now we must descend further, beneath the surface of mere agreement with a story, into a profounder truth. For breaking that agreement, while crucial, is only the initial tremor of awakening. What unfolds next in this very moment is the bedrock truth, the subterranean layer that most never excavate. A revelation that once grasped illuminates the entire landscape of your struggle and clarifies every past delay. Hold this truth close as we venture deeper. The authentic nature of the test you've been navigating is not a measure of your discipline, your work ethic, or your capacity for self-exertion. No, the test you are in is a profound examination of your identity. God, the grand architect of your very being, does not need to assess your talent or your ability to execute a task. He imprinted those capabilities within you before you drew your first breath. He doesn't require proof of your potential. He himself authored it. The real question, the true essence of this test, is whether you know it too. Do you truly believe the divine blueprint of who you are? Do you stand in the conviction that you were specifically designed, meticulously crafted, and powerfully equipped for the very assignment He has placed in your hands? Because an assignment, no matter how divinely appointed, when carried by someone who harbors a deep-seated disbelief in their inherent capacity and divine suitability, is destined to stall. It's not the inherent difficulty or monumental scale of the task that causes the halt. No, it is the fundamental incongruence between the sacred weight of the assignment and the fragile, self-doubting hands that attempt to carry it. The carrier, still wrestling with their true identity, perpetually lays down the burden, not because the load is unbearable, but because every pulse of its reality, every echo of its significance, serves as a searing reminder of their own internal conflict, their unaddressed disbelief in the divine strength dwelling within them. It's like a priceless, potent elixir entrusted to a vessel that constantly questions its own integrity, leaking its power through doubt. The true weight is not external, but internal, the weight of an identity yet to be fully embraced. You have been treating your purpose like a suggestion, like something you will get to when you feel ready. But purpose does not operate on your emotional timeline. Purpose operates on a heavenly one, and heaven does not issue summons to people who are fully prepared. Heaven issues summons to people who are fully surrendered. There is a difference, and that difference is everything. This vital distinction illuminates the chasm between human expectation and divine operation. You have, perhaps unwittingly, relegated your sacred purpose to the realm of a mere suggestion, an optional endeavor you will eventually undertake when the mythical feeling of readiness descends upon you. You've placed your spiritual calling on a deferment plan, waiting for an ideal emotional climate, a surge of inspiration, or a perfect alignment of internal and external conditions. But divine purpose, beloved, is not subject to the mercurial tides of human emotion or the fluctuating state of your personal comfort. It does not wait for your feelings to align. Purpose operates on a heavenly timeline, a rhythm and a cadence established by the divine orchestrator, wholly independent of your subjective experiences. And here is a profound truth that shatters conventional wisdom. Heaven does not issue its momentous summons to individuals who are fully prepared, impeccably credentialed, or flawlessly confident. If that were the case, the rosters of divine purpose would remain perpetually empty, for who among us can ever claim such absolute readiness? Instead, heaven issues its weighty summons to those who are fully surrendered. There is a cosmic, immeasurable difference between being prepared and being surrendered, and that difference, my friend, is everything. Preparedness often implies an accumulation of resources, knowledge, and self-assurance, and "I can do this" rooted in personal ability. Surrender, on the other hand, is an emptying, a radical trust that declares, "I can't do this, but God can do it through me." It's a relinquishing of control, a humble submission to the divine will, even when the path is shrouded in mist and the destination unclear. It's saying, "Here I am, send me," despite a pounding heart and trembling hands, knowing that the power is not derived from self, but from the source of all power. This surrender opens the floodgates for divine anointing and supernatural enablement, something no amount of human preparation can ever achieve. This is where the real turning point begins. Because once you understand that you have been waiting for a feeling that God never promised you, the feeling of readiness, the feeling of certainty, the feeling that all the conditions have aligned perfectly, once you see that, something breaks open. That feeling you have been waiting for is not a prerequisite for obedience. It is a reward of it. You do not feel ready and then move. You move and readiness comes. This understanding marks the true genesis of your turning point, the pivotal shift in your spiritual journey. For too long, you have been held captive by the illusion of a promised feeling, the elusive sensation of absolute readiness, the comforting warmth of certainty, the deceptive expectation that all conditions must align perfectly before you can take the consecrated step. This waiting for an emotional green light, a subjective assurance that God never pledged as a precondition for your obedience, has been the very anchor holding you in stagnation. But once this truth crystallizes in your spirit, once you truly grasp that this sought-after feeling is a phantom, a figment of human desire rather than a divine prerequisite, something profound breaks open within you. It's like a dam bursting, releasing years of pent-up spiritual potential, like scales falling from your eyes, revealing a path you thought was hidden. That elusive feeling you've been chasing, that comfortable sense of being perfectly poised, is not the key that unlocks obedience. Rather, it is the magnificent reward of obedience itself. It is the fruit, not the root. You do not wait until you feel ready to move. That is a dangerous reversal of divine order. Instead, you move in faith. You take the initial, audacious step, and in the very act of that movement, readiness descends upon you like a mantle. The confidence blossoms not before the leap, but in mid-air. The clarity emerges not prior to the journey, but with each step taken. This is the divine economy of faith. Action begets assurance. Obedience births empowerment. The feeling of being ready is not a starting point to be attained, but a destination to be discovered through the courageous act of walking into the unknown, trusting the one who calls you. It's the difference between perpetually preparing for a voyage and actually hoisting the sails. The wind catches the sails only when they are unfurled. Think of Peter stepping out of the boat. Jesus says, "Come," and Peter does not spend 3 minutes calculating the wind speed and the wave height and whether his swimming ability is sufficient for the conditions. He steps out, and the water holds him, not before he steps, but the moment his foot makes contact with it. The miracle was on the other side of the movement, not on the thinking side, not on the planning side. The miracle was on the other side of the step. And that one thing you have been carrying, that thing that is still pressing on your chest even as you hear this message right now, the water is going to hold you too. But you have to get out of the boat. Cast your mind back to that tumultuous night on the Sea of Galilee, a powerful biblical illustration of this very principle. Jesus, walking on the storm-tossed waves, issues a simple 2-word invitation to Peter. "Come." Peter, impulsively, audaciously, does not pause for a meteorological assessment of the Galilean tempest. He does not engage in a rapid-fire calculation of the wind speed, the height of the surging waves, or an evaluation of his own aquatic prowess and survival skills. He doesn't deliberate on the logistical implications or consult with his fellow disciples for a consensus. No. In an extraordinary act of immediate, faith-fueled obedience, Peter steps out. He pushes past the rational fears, beyond the apparent impossibility of the physics, and places his foot onto the churning, unstable surface. And what happens in that precise moment? The water, against all natural law, becomes solid beneath his feet. The miracle of sustained flotation does not precede his action. It manifests the very instant his foot makes contact with the impossible. The divine power that defied gravity was not activated on the thinking side of the boat, nor on the planning side, but on the other side of the audacious step. The breakthrough, the supernatural enablement, was a direct consequence of his movement. This profound truth resonates with the weight of the assignment you carry, that sacred purpose that continues to press upon your chest, a gentle but insistent reminder, even as these words reach your ears right now. Understand this with absolute clarity. The water is going to hold you too. The divine support you require is already ordained, already prepared, waiting to manifest. But the miracle cannot begin while you remain tethered to the perceived safety and familiarity of the boat of your comfort zone, the boat of your self-doubt, the boat of your what-ifs. You have to make the move. You have to step out. It is in that courageous disembarkation, that faith-filled plunge into the unknown, that you will discover the unshakable foundation of God's provision and power. Now, once you understand that, you are ready for this. And this is the part that changes the trajectory of everything you do after today. There is a difference between delay and suspension. Delay is what the enemy creates to steal your momentum. But suspension, holy suspension, is what God uses to set the atmosphere for a release that cannot be stopped once it begins. The question you need to answer is not how long have I been waiting? The question is, which one has this been? Because if it has been holy suspension, then what is coming on the other side of your obedience is not just completion, it is acceleration. It is the kind of forward movement that makes people around you ask what changed. Because suddenly everything that was stuck starts moving at once. With this newfound clarity, you are now prepared to receive an insight that will fundamentally alter the trajectory of your entire spiritual journey from this day forward. There exists a crucial, often misunderstood distinction between delay and suspension. Delay is a tactic of the adversary, a calculated maneuver to inject friction into your progress, to drain your spiritual momentum, to erode your faith through protracted waiting and perceived stagnation. It is a theft of time and energy, designed to wear down your resolve until you abandon the assignment entirely. But then there is suspension, a holy suspension, ordained and orchestrated by the hand of God Himself. This divine pause is not about holding you back. It is about setting the perfect atmosphere, cultivating the precise conditions for a release that, once initiated, will be utterly unstoppable. It is a period of divine incubation, a subterranean work of preparation and alignment that occurs beneath the visible surface of your circumstances. Therefore, the pivotal question for you is not simply, how long have I been waiting, but rather, which of these has this season truly been? Has it been an enemy-induced delay or a God-ordained holy suspension? If, by the discerning eye of your spirit, you recognize that this has been a holy suspension, then prepare yourself for a magnificent truth. What awaits you on the other side of your renewed obedience is not merely the satisfactory completion of your task. It is a phenomenal acceleration. It is a sudden, powerful surge of forward momentum, akin to a coiled spring finally released, or a river breaking through a long-held dam. This acceleration will be so palpable, so undeniable, that those around you will be compelled to ask, what changed? What shifted? Because suddenly, every element that seemed stuck, every barrier that appeared immovable, begins to move, not incrementally, but simultaneously, in a cascade of divine progress. This is the breakthrough that swallows up all past frustration, the speed of heaven made manifest on earth. Joseph in the prison did not know that in 24 hours he would be standing before Pharaoh. He had been in that place of suspension for years, falsely accused, seemingly forgotten, his gifts underutilized and unrecognized. But he kept doing what his hands found to do, even in the confines of a place that felt like it was the wrong place entirely. He interpreted dreams in a prison cell. He served faithfully in a context that felt like punishment. And then in one moment, one divine moment, the suspension ended and the acceleration began. From the prison to the palace in a single day. That is what holy suspension looks like when it breaks. And I want you to understand that your suspension is not a sign that God forgot you. It is a sign that the release, when it comes, is going to be undeniable, unmistakable, the kind that cannot be explained by your own effort alone. Consider the compelling saga of Joseph, a man plunged into the depths of a literal prison, utterly unaware that within the span of merely 24 hours, he would be standing in the resplendent halls of Pharaoh's palace, poised to become the second most powerful man in Egypt. He had endured a prolonged, agonizing season of holy suspension for years, Years marked by the sting of false accusations, the bitterness of being seemingly forgotten, his extraordinary God-given gifts lying dormant, underutilized, and unrecognized within the dreary confines of a dungeon. Yet, even in that dark, unjust place, a place that screamed, "This is not where you belong," Joseph never ceased to do what his hands found to do with excellence and integrity. He interpreted dreams for fellow prisoners, extending his prophetic gift even in the most unlikely of settings. He served faithfully, displaying unwavering character and diligence, even within a context that felt like punishment. And then, in a single, electrifying, divinely appointed moment, one swift, supernatural intervention, the protracted suspension shattered and the acceleration began. The transition was breathtaking, from the squalor of a prison cell to the opulent grandeur of a palace in a mere day, a testament to the speed and sovereignty of heaven. This, beloved, is the breathtaking power and suddenness of holy suspension when it breaks open. This is what it looks like when God moves. I want to implant this profound truth deeply into your spirit. Your current season of suspension, however long or uncomfortable it may feel, is not a chilling sign that God has forgotten you or that your purpose has been revoked. On the contrary, it is a powerful indicator, a prophetic marker, that the release, when it finally comes, will be so overwhelmingly undeniable, so utterly unmistakable, that it will defy all human explanation. It will be a manifestation of divine power that transcends your own efforts, your own calculations, your own capacity to orchestrate. It will be a testimony so grand, so clearly stamped with the fingerprint of God, that it leaves no room for doubt about its origin. It's the moment when heaven pulls back the veil and shows its hand, and the world stands in awe. But stay with me, because coming up is the one insight most people run from when they hear it. The thing beneath the delay that no one wants to look at directly. And it is the key to making sure this cycle never repeats itself. Here is the part no one wants to hear. And I need you to receive this with an open spirit, because this is not condemnation. This is liberation. The deepest root of your stalling is not fear of failure. Most people assume it is. They look at their procrastination and they diagnose it as insecurity, as self-doubt, as not believing in themselves enough. And yes, there are elements of that. But underneath that fear of failure, there is something more precise, something that requires a little more courage to name. It is fear of becoming, not fear that you will fail at the assignment. Fear of who you will have to be once you complete it. Because completing the thing means you are no longer in the process. You are in the arrival. And arrival brings exposure. Arrival brings accountability. Arrival brings the very visibility you have been praying for, and somehow, without realizing it, also dreading. But hold fast, for we are about to delve into the most challenging, yet ultimately most liberating insight of all, the uncomfortable truth that many instinctively recoil from, the subterranean root beneath your persistent delays that few dare to examine directly. Yet, confronting this truth is the absolute key to breaking the cyclical pattern of stagnation, ensuring that this season of stalled potential never repeats itself in your life. This is the unvarnished truth, the part that strikes a nerve. I urge you to receive these words not with a spirit of defense or self-reproach, but with an open, receptive heart. For this is not a message of condemnation designed to burden you, but a powerful revelation intended for your profound liberation. While many assume that the deepest root of their stalling, their procrastination, and their inability to move forward is a simple fear of failure, a diagnosis often attributed to insecurity, self-doubt, or a lack of self-belief. And indeed, these elements frequently play a role. Beneath that surface, fear lies something far more precise, something far more existential, something that demands a greater measure of raw courage to name truthfully. It is profoundly the fear of becoming. It is not fundamentally the fear that you will spectacularly fail at the assignment itself, that your efforts will crumble into dust. No, it is the deep-seated, often subconscious fear of the person you will have to become once you successfully complete it. Because to complete the thing, to bring it across the finish line, signifies an end to the comfortable ambiguity of the process. You will transition from perpetually in progress to definitively in arrival. And arrival, beloved, comes with an undeniable set of new demands. Arrival brings exposure, drawing you out from the shadows of obscurity into the illuminating, sometimes uncomfortable light of public awareness. Arrival brings accountability, for with greater influence comes greater responsibility and a divine reckoning for the stewardship of your gifts. And crucially, arrival brings the very visibility you have perhaps earnestly prayed for, longed for, and diligently worked towards. Yet, in a hidden, unacknowledged corner of your heart, you have also been secretly dreading it. It is the fear of the spotlight, the weight of the crown, the awesome responsibility that accompanies the manifestation of your divine potential. You have been comfortable in the becoming. You have been comfortable saying, I am working on it, I am getting there, I am in the process. Because in the process, expectations are suspended. In the process, you still have room to be imperfect and unfinished and hidden. But arrival requires you to stand fully in what God said about you. And that is terrifying when a part of you still does not fully believe it. This is the subtle, seductive trap of the in-between. You have found a strange, almost deceptive comfort in the perpetual state of becoming, in the ongoing narrative of, I am working on it, I am getting there, I am still in the process. This protracted journey, this continuous state of striving and learning, offers a certain psychological safety. For in the process, the rigorous expectations of completion are subtly suspended. In the process, there remains ample room for imperfection, for mistakes, for being unfinished, for operating in a state of comfortable obscurity. You are allowed to be a work in progress, shielded from the full glare of judgment or the weighty mantle of accomplishment. But arrival, true, unambiguous arrival, demands something fundamentally different. It requires you to stand unapologetically, authentically, and fully in the truth of who God has declared you to be. It necessitates a complete embodiment of your divine identity, a confident occupation of the space He has ordained for you. And that, my dear one, is profoundly terrifying when a deep-seated, often unacknowledged part of you still grapples with doubt, still struggles to fully believe, to truly internalize the magnificent truth of God's unwavering word concerning your worth, your capabilities, and your ultimate destiny. The internal dissonance between who you perceive yourself to be and who God says you are creates a powerful resistance, making the very threshold of your triumph feel more like a precipice than a promised land. It's the unsettling sensation of donning a crown that feels too heavy, too large, too glorious for the person you still believe yourself to be. This is the hidden thing. This is the thing the enemy uses not to stop you from starting, but to stop you from finishing. He lets you begin. He lets you build momentum. He even lets you get close. And then, at the threshold of completion, he whispers the real lie. Not you cannot do this, but you are not ready to be who this makes you. This is the true stealth weapon of the adversary, the concealed maneuver of the enemy. His cunning strategy is not to prevent you from even beginning the divine assignment, for he often allows you that initial burst of enthusiasm, that spark of divine inspiration to ignite. He permits you to gather momentum, to invest your energy, to make significant strides, even to bring you tantalizingly close to the culmination of your efforts. He lets you build, he lets you dream, He even lets you feel the exhilarating proximity of achievement. But then, at the very precipice, at the sacred threshold of completion, when the finish line is within sight, when the final act is poised to unfold, he unleashes his most potent, most insidious, and most damaging whisper. His lie at this critical juncture is not the crude, easily identifiable taunt of, "You cannot do this. You are inadequate." No, that lie is too obvious, too readily exposed. His real, devastating lie is far more subtle, far more tailored to the fears of the chosen heart. You are not ready to be who this makes you. It's an attack on your future self, a poisonous suggestion that the glory, the responsibility, the new identity that accompanies completion is a burden too heavy for your current self to bear. He knows that if he can convince you that the transformed you is unmanageable, undesirable, or simply too much, you will self-sabotage, pull back from the brink of your own breakthrough, and choose the familiar comfort of the almost done over the terrifying magnificence of the fully realized. And I'm going to challenge you with something right now that is going to require you to be completely honest. The question is not whether you are ready to finish the work. The question is whether you are ready to receive what comes after you do, because God has not just been waiting on your obedience, He has been preparing a response to it. And that response is so beyond what you have allowed yourself to imagine that the part of you still bound by small thinking has been quietly sabotaging the very steps that would bring you into it. Now, I must present you with a challenge, a direct invitation to profound self-honesty, demanding that you look squarely into the mirror of your soul without reservation. The critical question, the real crucible for your spirit, is not merely whether you possess the capacity or the will to finish the work that God has placed in your hands. That is often a secondary concern. The true piercing question is this: are you ready to receive what comes after you do? Are you prepared for the glorious, often overwhelming consequences of your completed obedience? Because God, the faithful covenant keeper, has not been passively observing your journey, patiently waiting for your decision to act. No, His divine activity is far more proactive, far more expansive. He has been meticulously, lovingly, and powerfully preparing a magnificent response to your obedience, a divine recompense that transcends the wildest reaches of your human imagination. This prepared response is so vast, so rich, so overflowing with blessing and expanded purpose, that the part of you still clinging to small thinking, still bound by the limitations of your past self-perception, has been quietly, insidiously sabotaging the very steps, the very choices, the very movements that would usher you directly into this breathtaking inheritance. It's a self-inflicted resistance, a subconscious fear of the boundless good that God intends to pour out upon you. Like a vessel accustomed only to drops, fearing the deluge of a river, you've inadvertently held back the flow, not because you don't desire the river, but because you doubt your capacity to contain its vastness. The truth is, your small thinking has made the magnificent feel dangerous, the abundant feel unmanageable, and the breakthrough feel like a terrifying unknown. You have been afraid of your own breakthrough, not because you are weak, but because something in you still has not settled into the fullness of what God called you. And until that settles, until the internal identity catches up with the divine assignment, the external completion will keep feeling like a threat instead of a reward. To be starkly honest, a part of you has been afraid of your own breakthrough. This is not a judgment of your character or an indictment of your strength. It is a diagnosis of a profound spiritual reality. It's not born from weakness, but from an unsettled core, an unaligned truth deep within your being. There is still something in your inner landscape, a fragment of your identity that has not fully settled into the magnanimous or inspiring fullness of who God has called you to be. It's like a grand symphony waiting to be played, but one instrument still believes it's meant for a simple tune. And until that internal dissonance resolves itself, until your deeply held internal identity fully catches up, fully aligns, and fully integrates with the profound scope of the divine assignment, the external completion of your purpose will continue to register in your spirit, not as the anticipated reward, but as a looming threat. It will feel like an imposition, a burden, a dangerous step into an unknown identity that feels too grand, too weighty, too exposed. This lack of internal congruence creates a spiritual tension where the very blessings God intends to bestow are perceived as potential liabilities, and the very liberation He offers feels like a terrifying plunge into unfamiliar waters. The external manifestation of your purpose is merely a reflection of your internal conviction. Until you truly believe you are the person God says you are, the fulfillment of His promises will feel like a costume you're not ready to wear, rather than the true garment of your destiny. And now here is what I did not expect to tell you today, because this is the layer beneath the layer. This is the thing that, once you see it, reframes everything else this message has built. The assignment God gave you was never primarily about the thing you produce. It was about the person you become by finishing it. God is not primarily after your output. He is after your transformation, and the enemy knows that if you complete this, if you push through the threshold of that final resistance and bring the thing across the finish line, you will never approach an assignment the same way again. You will have developed something in your spirit that cannot be taught in preparation. It can only be forged in completion. And once you have it, once you have walked through that final door and discovered that the water held, that the provision came, that the anointing was there even when the confidence was not, you will be permanently dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. And now, allow me to reveal a truth that, honestly, I hadn't originally planned to articulate today. This is the deepest stratum, the layer beneath the layer, the fundamental insight that, once grasped, will utterly reframe and revolutionize every other truth this message has meticulously constructed. The profound, overarching purpose of the assignment God entrusted into your hands was never, at its core, primarily about the tangible thing you would produce, not the book you write, the business you launch, the ministry you build, or the relationship you heal. These are merely the visible manifestations. No, the divine objective was always, first and foremost, about the person you would become by finishing it. God is not chiefly concerned with your output, with the metrics of your accomplishments. His burning desire, His ultimate aim, is your profound spiritual transformation. He uses the assignment as a divine crucible, a spiritual gymnasium for the forging of character, faith, and identity. And the enemy, the ancient adversary of souls, understands this truth with chilling clarity. He knows with absolute certainty that if you complete this task, if you successfully push through the formidable threshold of that final, insidious resistance, if you defy every whisper of doubt and procrastination and boldly bring this thing across the finish line, you will be irrevocably changed. You will emerge as an entirely new version of yourself, one who will never again approach any subsequent divine assignment with the same trepidation or self-doubt. You will have cultivated, developed, and ingrained something profoundly powerful within the very fabric of your spirit, a spiritual resilience, an unshakable confidence in divine enablement that simply cannot be acquired through any amount of preparation, study, or theoretical understanding. This invaluable attribute can only be forged in the searing heat of completion, in the lived experience of courageous obedience. And once you possess that, once you have walked through that final, formidable door of done, once you have personally discovered beyond all intellectual assent that the water did indeed hold you, that the precise provision arrived exactly when needed, that the anointing was powerfully present even in the glaring absence of your own self-confidence. Once you have this undeniable testimony etched into your soul, you will be permanently dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. You will become an unstoppable force, a living testament to God's faithfulness, and a formidable threat to every lie the enemy attempts to sow. That is what he is actually trying to stop, not the project, not the application, not the assignment. He is trying to stop the version of you that exists on the other side of your obedience. This is the crux of the spiritual battle, the true objective of the enemy's relentless interference. He is not primarily targeting your project, your entrepreneurial endeavor, your application for that pivotal role, or the specific assignment itself. These are merely the battlegrounds. His ultimate insidious aim is to prevent the emergence of the version of you that stands radiant and fully realized on the other side of your courageous obedience. He wants to keep you small, confined to the familiar and the comfortable, never fully stepping into the divine potential that completion unlocks. He fears the transformed you, the empowered you, the you who walks in an undeniable anointing and unshakable faith, because that version of you poses an existential threat to his dominion of doubt and delay. And what most people do not realize is that God already sees that version of you. He has been speaking to that version of you this entire time. When he called you chosen, he was not speaking to who you are in the delay. He was speaking to who you are in the completion. He calls things that are not as though they are, and he has been calling you finished, calling you faithful, calling you fruitful, while you were still sitting in the in-between, wondering why it felt like nothing was moving. And here is a profound, comforting, yet often overlooked truth that most people fail to grasp in the midst of their struggle. God, who inhabits eternity, already sees that radiant, completed version of you. From his eternal perspective, your transformation is not a future possibility, but a present reality. He has been speaking directly to that fully realized version of you this entire time, his voice reverberating through the ages, calling forth what is not yet manifest. When he etched your name into the book of life, when he declared you chosen before the foundations of the world, he was not speaking to the you riddled with self-doubt, paralyzed by delay, or wrestling with imperfection. He was speaking to the you who stands triumphantly in completion, draped in glory and unwavering faith. He is the God who calls things that are not as though they are, a powerful declaration of prophetic truth. He has been calling you finished, calling you faithful, calling you fruitful, speaking these divine realities into existence, even while you were still lingering in the uncomfortable, ambiguous territory of the in-between, wondering why it felt as if nothing was truly moving, why your prayers seemed to hang unanswered in the silent heavens. His vision transcends your temporal struggle, seeing past the apparent stagnation to the glorious culmination. It has been moving, in you, under you, around you. Heaven has been rearranging things on your behalf while you were still trying to find the courage to begin again. And now the rearrangement is complete. And the only piece that remains is your movement. Rest assured, beloved, it has been moving. Movement has been happening, not always visible to the naked eye, but powerfully effective in the spiritual realm. It has been moving in you, a profound reshaping of your inner landscape, a strengthening of your spirit, a deepening of your roots. It has been moving under you, the laying of unseen foundations, the strategic placement of divine support systems, preparing the ground for your next steps. It has been moving around you, an intricate cosmic orchestration of circumstances, synchronicity, and divine alignments. Heaven, in its infinite wisdom and boundless love, has been meticulously rearranging things on your behalf, shifting people, opening doors, closing others, aligning resources, and establishing perfect timing, all while you were still wrestling with your fears, still gathering your courage, still trying to find the strength to simply begin again. The divine stage has been set, the pieces moved into their optimal positions, and now, at this precise moment, the grand celestial rearrangement is complete. The intricate tapestry of preparation is woven. The only remaining singular and indispensable piece of this magnificent divine puzzle is your empowered, obedient movement. The ball is in your court, the final decision resting squarely on your willingness to step forth. So the final thing I will leave you with is this. There will be a moment, probably in the next 24 to 72 hours, when the opportunity to move will present itself again. The assignment will open itself up to you one more time. The window will crack, and in that moment, every familiar voice will rise. Every reason to wait will resurface. The exhaustion will be real. The uncertainty will be real. The feeling of not being ready will be absolutely real. And you will have to choose, in that moment, with all of that present and pressing, to move anyway. So, as we draw to a close, this is the final, urgent message I imprint upon your spirit. Mark my words, there will be a specific, undeniable moment, quite possibly within the next 24 to 72 hours, when the very opportunity you've been pondering, the very assignment you've been carrying, will present itself to you again. The door that seemed to be sealing shut will crack open once more, offering a sliver of light, a fresh invitation. The assignment will manifest itself, perhaps in a subtle nudge, a clear prompt, or an unexpected opening. And in that precise moment, when the window of opportunity widens, every familiar voice of doubt will rise within you. A chorus of past insecurities, echoing loudly in the chambers of your mind. Every logical-sounding reason to pause, to procrastinate, to defer, will resurface with renewed vigor, attempting to hold you captive. The very real exhaustion from your long journey, the genuine uncertainty about the outcome, the deeply ingrained feeling of not being ready, of not being enough. All of these sensations will be absolutely undeniably real and powerfully pressing upon your spirit. Yet, in that defining moment, with the cacophony of doubt surrounding you, with the weight of your perceived limitations heavy on your shoulders, and with the very real sensation of unreadiness coursing through your veins, you will face a profound, soul-defining choice. You will have to choose, against all internal resistance, against every external dissuasion, against the very truth of your immediate feelings, to move anyway. This is where faith becomes manifest, where divine power is activated through human will, not because you feel ready, not because the conditions are perfect, not because the fear has passed, but because God commanded it, because the window is still open, because the water will hold, because the version of you on the other side of that step is who you were always supposed to be. You will not make that move because a sudden surge of confidence floods your being, banishing all doubt. You will not move because the conditions have magically become perfect, aligning in a flawless celestial symphony. You will certainly not move because the fear has miraculously dissipated, leaving you in a state of tranquil certainty. No. You will move anyway. You will move because the command was issued by the living God, whose word is the very foundation of creation. You will move because, despite the internal arguments, the window of opportunity is undeniably still open, a testament to divine grace and persistent invitation. You will move because the promise remains, etched in spiritual lore, that the water will indeed hold you, that the unseen hand of God will become your firm ground. And you will move because the version of you that exists on the other side of that single courageous step of obedience is not a foreign entity, but the authentic, fully actualized, magnificent person you were always divinely designed and destined to be. This is your destiny calling, activated by your simple, profound yes. And you will not make that step alone, because what you felt pressing on your chest in the night was not just urgency. It was the hand of God. And that hand does not press you towards something it has not already prepared the way for. Let this truth be a comforting anchor in the storm of your resolve. You will not, for a single breath, make that courageous step alone. For what you felt stirring deep within your spirit, that insistent, powerful pressing on your chest in the quiet of the night, was not merely an amorphous sense of urgency, a fleeting emotional impulse. It was the tangible, guiding, empowering hand of Almighty God. It was His divine touch, His personal presence, beckoning you forward. And that omnipotent hand, the hand that shaped galaxies and formed mountains, does not press you toward a destination or an assignment for which it has not already meticulously, perfectly, and completely prepared the way. Every obstacle you perceive, every challenge that looms, every resource you believe is missing, God has already foreseen and divinely accounted for it. The path is already cleared, the provision already allocated, the victory already secured. Your step is simply the trigger that unveils what has already been established in heavenly realms. You are walking into a finished work, guided by an unfailing hand. Place your hand over your chest right now and declare this out loud wherever you are. I am not behind. I am not disqualified. I am not too late. I break every agreement I have made with delay, with doubt, with the lie that the window has closed. I release the fear of becoming. I release the comfort of the in-between. I step into the fullness of what God has already called me, already prepared me, already positioned me for. The assignment in my hands is still alive. The anointing on my life has not lifted. I will finish what heaven started in me. I move now, not in my own strength, but in the power of a command issued by the God who made my mouth, who ordered my steps, who has already seen me on the other side of my obedience. I am the chosen one who did not stop. I am the one who finished. And my breakthrough is not coming, it is here. I receive it now. If this message reached you today at the exact moment it was supposed to, I want you to do one thing. Go finish it. Whatever it is, go finish it. And when you do, come back and tell me what happened. Leave a comment that says finished or done or I moved, because that comment is a testimony, and testimonies carry power for the next person who needs to hear that the water holds. Subscribe if you want to stay in this space, because we are just getting started, and share this with someone who you know has been carrying something unfinished, because you might be the reason their moment finally arrives.